All right, guys, welcome to the channel. We are the Florida Hockey Bros, and we have a podcast, and this is it. So, my name is David. I'm joined by my brother Daryl, and we're gonna be reviewing last night's games with the Leafs, as well as kind of an overview on the start of the season for the Florida Panthers, and we'll also get into some comments by Paul Maurice, some interviews that he's done in between games, touching on Mackey sort of and some of the prospects. My brother has a lot to say on that. It's a big Paul Maurice guy, and from there we'll give you some NHL takes and just some things that we've noticed, and yeah, let's get right into it, Daryl. I was very happy that we won last night. It was one of those games that I didn't really care the score or whatever. I just wanted to get the W just so the Toronto wouldn't win more than anything, because I know the Panthers are going to be fine. I think they've looked just fine to start the season. There's a lot of positives. It just hasn't maybe translated into wins, especially the Minnesota game that we should have won. But yeah, anything that you want to get into last night? You want to maybe start with that first period and the way things looked for either team, as well as I also want to get into how the Leafs newcomers looked. Klingsberg was pretty awful. Bertuzzi was a ghost, and Domi, I don't know. I kind of feel bad for him now. So yeah, anything you want to get started on there?
Yeah, no, I think first period, when all things were equal, we were the better team to start, and we deserved to be in front. Even I've been listening to the Leafs podcast this morning because it's a fun thing to do when you beat them, and they've been talking about how the Leafs had a slow start and they deserved to be down. So even they acknowledged that. So I thought we had a great start, and I think then once we went up 2-0, the rest of the game was kind of influenced by that. I think Toronto was a lot more aggressive. I mean, the penalties were kind of even, and we took a couple of dumb penalties on the offensive zone. I think that could have made a difference and maybe put the game away, and we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. But I thought that for the last two periods, it was pretty even though Toronto had a few more shots and chances because they were chasing the game. They were being aggressive. Bob had a great game. Nothing crazy. I didn't think he had to make a ton of crazy saves, but from the net got a little bit intense a few times, and he was positioning yesterday for him, and rebound control was excellent. So he did his part. And yeah, what I really liked about yesterday was the fight. The fact that it was physical. It was kind of like a playoff game. The last two periods, it was like very tight. It kind of got opened up in the third period a little bit, but it was physical both ways. And we had to block a lot of shots at the end. I mean, Mikola, I told you, should get the day off and maybe a spot treatment by the team today, because he led the team with 5 block shots and it was hurt. And Stenlund blocking and getting the puck out, Kachuk getting the puck at the end, and Reinhart getting that goal. I just want to make a joke, bro. That Reinhart goal with 0.01 seconds left. Steve Dangle was saying this one in his reaction video last night was actually funny, because sometimes it's not, but he said that if Reinhart, when he's negotiating his contract, if he says, hey, I scored 50 goals last season, the Panthers should be like, nah, 49.
Yeah, man.
Don't count that one as a gimme. Because he didn't even make the play. It was Kachuk, I think.
Had a player like Reinhardt before that the stats are there, but then you watch the game, you're like,
I mean, the tricky part is going to be whether Cito keeps him. And if we do keep him, he's going to be a first liner. If you're going to pay him, he's got to play on the first line. He's been okay. Again, 5-on-5, not the best guy. But I'd rather he get the points and we can trade him for good assets, because if he has a good season statistically and we decide not to keep him because it's too much money or not a fit for what we want, then we can actually maximize the trade with him and get some, high picks or whatever. So anyway, I'm not mad at him getting the points. It's just kind of funny that it was him doing that. But one thing, that I think sort of is noticeable is that we are very sound structurally. We have a lot of new guys, like a lot of new defensemen. new lines, and in only 4 games, we are able to have the different kinds of games. We were dominant for 2 periods against Jersey and like really beat them and looked dominant. We're up 4-0 and deserved to be up 4-0. We dominated the Wild for the most part. The Jets, we had a really bad game, but then we almost came back. I mean, we were like a post hit away from Kachuk on the breakaway from tying. So, I think the team has looked strong considering that we had to start on a road trip out west. And yesterday, I think it all came together for a scrappy physical game where we had to hold on to a lead, which is kind of what you need to do in the playoffs. And I think we showed that we are still capable of doing that, even shorthanded. Again, we were missing arguably our best 2 defensemen and Bennett, who's huge for that second line. For
Bennett at the very least. With Bennett, you get the chemistry back, sort of, and
depth, man. Lusty goes back to the third line.
Yeah.
Like Lundy, I want to say Lundy, he struggled points wise, but yesterday he won 78% of his faceoffs. He put in a big hit in the third period that Cousins led to a Cousins chance in front of the net that almost scored. So his line has been shuffled. He's playing with Cousins. He's playing with Sordiff. He's playing with Mackey, rookies. You can't expect him. Maurice mentioned in an interview that the first 2 games were not great, so they're pushing him and they're talking to him about it. But I think my issue with Lundy is that he tries to still just carry the puck and be fancy, whereas Lusty dumps in. Like yesterday, back to back, there was a Lundy play where he was coming out of the zone with control, tried to force it down the middle, lost the puck to the Leafs, who played a decent defensive game in terms of the blue line. And then the next shift or whatever, Lusty came exactly the same, coming out of the zone, control. He saw 2 people collapsing. He dumped it in, and then they led to an offensive shift in their zone. So that's the difference right now. Lundy needs to read the game and needs to understand, hey, if the Leafs are going to play more tight, just tighter, just dump in, and he did that in the third period. So anyway, I feel like the team, it's only going to get better and stronger. We'll get healthier. But we're looking good against 4 straight, playoff opponents, or at least teams that made the playoffs last year. The Leafs have been picked by everybody to win the Atlantic. And again, yes, they had more shots, they had more chances, but that's because of how the game was dictated, given that we were up early, and it was by 2 goals, and they had to really chase the game. So of course we had to be a little more responsible. I think had it been more even, again, first period when everything was equal, we were the better team. We had the first wave, we were really dominant. Then it kind of evened up. And then I think the Leafs only got 1 shot in the last 8 minutes of the period. So we shut them down. So anyway, I'm impressed and happy because this is the kind of win that leads you to win in the playoffs again. I don't know. I told you, it felt like a lightning type of a third period for us where we had to block shots and defend and scrap for the win, being a little bit more short-handed. But on our side, I'm happy. So I'll throw it to you we talk about the Leafs, but
yeah,
I think the Panthers, I think we're in good shape for the first 4 games. We can build on this. It gets easier with the schedule now. We're home against some Western opponents. It's kind of a weird schedule, man. We're playing a ton of
Western schedule teams. Has been weird to start the season for the Panthers.
But teams that are more beatable than the ones we face. So hopefully we don't let the foot off the gas. But
yeah, the next 3 are the next 4. I think we played the Hurricanes.
Yeah, it's Canucks. We played the Canucks. We played Seattle, and we play somebody else that I forget. Then I think we go on the road and we play Chicago. We're gonna play the Bruins. It's teams that are more equal, I guess, or even worse than we are. So
the next 3 we play Vancouver, the Sharks, Seattle.
Sharks. Yeah, those are winnable games.
And then the Bruins. So if we can sweep the homestand, we're in really good shape. Obviously, there's always going to be a trap game somewhere in there. But yeah, then we get the Bruins. But then again, after the Bruins, we get Detroit, and then 3 games. Chicago, Columbus, Capitals. Then the Hurricanes, but yet again, it's the schedule is actually not bad in terms of strength of opponent, but
yeah, Bennett should be back by the time we go out on the road, and then Montour probably is going to be back in November at some point, mid-November, so we should be good.
Yeah, I was really happy last night watching the game. the second period was really the only period where Toronto kind of, you expect that they came out pretty hard and they took it to us a little bit, which is, is to be expected. They're a good team. Any team is going to do that to you any given night. But I was really happy with the first period. I think we shut them down pretty good. No easy chances. The Leafs did miss a couple of what should have been easy goals. But beyond that, I there was nothing that I saw that made me scared as a Panthers fan going into the playoffs. If we have to face them, or even the Lightning or the Bruin or whoever, like you mentioned, I think the structure's there, and the players that were here last year understand that, and now it's just executing whatever the game plan is. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Leafs, man. It's confusing because if you just don't really think about it, for everyone to expect them to get to the finals, win the Atlantic, a lot of people had them winning, the President's Trophy. I don't see it. I don't see there's it hasn't been improved. The roster did not get improved. Bertuzzi's getting career low minutes. Domi is barely getting minutes. Reeves was brought in to do what? Play music in the locker room, hype up the boys. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get the strategy. I think Keefe and Treliving are not on the same page. I don't understand why they kept Keefe if that was going to be the game plan going forward. I think they thought maybe, let's at least get to the playoffs and go from there. But yeah, I think something's going to give, like when it comes to the Leafs. I think, Keefe is going to get fired soon. Something's going to change. He's going to keep changing the lineups. He's going to keep, doing what he has to do. I think the players are discouraged. You can kind of see it. Nylander was a ghost last night as well. Marner had a pretty good game, probably their best player. Klinsberg, like, how many times is he just gonna just fling the puck out from behind the net out of his own zone to no one? Like, he just throws it out there.
Bro, Dangle was talking about that. He showed a still on the Stenlund goal. It's hilarious. 5 Leafs in a row like this, like going back to their zone. There was no positioning. And Klingberg gets to the puck first. He has space. He has 2 people right behind him. He can get the puck to everybody. He decides to just fling it, like you said, blindly. And then Stenlund gets it, and there's nobody around him. And he just skates out. And then Lomberg gets a screen in front. Again, this is like the instincts that we have as a team now. And then you get that shot. And yeah, I think that, but they knew that. They knew about Klingberg when they got him, that that's who he is. He's always been that. He's 33 or whatever, however old he is. Like, that's who he is. He's not going to change that. He's had some of the worst. The only other defenseman that has worse giveaway numbers is Carlson, which again, you also know that about him. And it's funny how he does, like, the power play. He is better than Riley because he can really pass and really move the puck. That's what he's known for. So he can provide that for them. But the power play has never been an issue for the Leafs. They were number 1 and number 2 the last 2 years. So, how better can you really get? And I think, to me, it doesn't make up, in my opinion, for the defensive liability, because now what's happened with Klingberg is he's been demoted to the third pairing, and he played 5 minutes on the power play yesterday and only 13 minutes at 5-on-5 or 12. Like, it was only 17 or 18 minutes. He played a lot less than he's been playing. He's been playing 20 some minutes the first few games. So already they're panicking. To me, that feels like panic. Instead of sticking with it, instead of trying to implement the system, Keefe, I think, is a coach that panics a lot. He over-relies on the stars, the first 2 lines, because of all the scoring and all the big numbers. That keeps them afloat, and they are hard to contain on most nights. I mean, those guys are really, really skilled and can really skate. And it's very frustrating, as a defenseman or as a forward trying to chase them. But yesterday, Kulikov laid out Nylander. You kind of keep Matthews to the outside. You keep Marner to the outside best you can. And then all of a sudden, they have nothing else to give. The defensemen can really score. They don't shoot from the point a lot. They don't crash in it a lot, only toward the end because they were desperate. But look at our goals. Look at the way that we were getting the puck through. Kulikov hit the post. You know what I'm saying? And, you mentioned the Leafs had chances. Yeah, but, we had a breakaway with Reinhart, which, worst shot ever. But, we had the Cousins chance in front of the net. Mahura went in, like, one-on-one with the goalie and just put it in his chest. But, our chances were there,
Kulikov
too.
hit the post, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, we just saw how OEL scored and stuff. So at the end of the day, we can score in a lot of different ways, right? You can have Kachuk in front of the net, you can have heavy sniping, you can have the defenseman and the Kulikovs become Ekblad now, and for good or bad, or for better or worse. But so anyway, like I think that we have a more balanced all around team. I think when we get our guys back, we're going to be a deep team. I think with Bennett back, all of our lines get a lot stronger. Our fourth line looked great yesterday. Gotta shout out those guys. The third period, they dominated, and they allowed to rest the big guns for the last few minutes of the game to defend. Mikkel and Kulikov, they're kind of more inconsistent. They're not going to give you the elite numbers that like Monto or Edblack can give you, but they look good. They're big. They're physical. They hit. They can shoot. They can pinch. You pair those guys up with Edblack and Monto when they come back, and then you have OEL and Forsling if you want to keep that together, because that's been really working. I want to say OEL has been for the money. It's been money, and even defensively, like he's been solid. Like he's not the best, but he can steal pucks. He has great hands. He gets it out. He doesn't turn it over a ton, at least that I can see. Forsling has been struggling more with that, but I think Forsling will get better, and so I think our pairings are going to get deep. And all of a sudden, Maher, Belinsky's looked good yesterday. He was laying hits like I didn't know he had that in him. Belinsky was hitting people. McCabe laid him out because he was pissed because Belinsky smashed him against the boards, and if he can skate that fast and hit, all of a sudden Maher, him, they're going to compete for that other spot. I think Riley's going to get waived probably once people come back. But anyway, we have the depth, man, and we have the size. Stanley, Lawrence. Like all of a sudden, we were missing some of that last season, and not just size, but size that can skate and handle, not like freaking Eric Stahl. So I don't know. I think we've built for another playoff, contending like run if everything works out our way. And so that's what I've seen so far. I'm just hoping they can stay consistent, not fall asleep. But we have enough guys on contract years, some guys on 1-year deals that need to prove it and need to go get bigger contracts. So hopefully that keeps everybody motivated. And Barkov and Kachuk, the spotlight is on them, so they're not going to let up. And if they do, they're going to hear about it. So anyway, I think we can only get better. Verhaeghe hasn't taken off yet. Kachuk hasn't scored. Forsling's been struggling, hasn't put up a point yet. That's going to change, and so and Bob has been much better the last 2 games. So maybe you can give Stollers now a start in the next 3 games and get him in and keep Bob hot. So I don't know, man. It's been good. I mean, everything might change if we lose 5-2 to the Canucks, but right now it feels like we're on the right track.
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna have bad games anyway, but yeah, I think. Yeah. And I think what's also encouraging is our best players haven't really gotten going yet. Barkov and Kachuk don't have a goal.
I think Barkov has one. Doesn't Barkov have a goal? Or maybe he doesn't, but I remember him scoring. Wasn't the other day that he scored? Maybe I'm wrong. I thought he scored against the Jets or something, but
no, it was that was credited, I think, to Rodriguez.
Oh, it was tipped. Got it.
It was tipped. Yeah. So he just has four assists. Same with Kachuk, and then Reinhardt, our best player, of course, is leading the way. And Rodriguez had a 4-point game.
We'll take the goals
against the Jets as well, so he's up there. But yeah, like Verhaeghe has taken a ton of shots. He hasn't scored. Lundell and Lusterinen haven't really gotten going offensively, and that's just due to like the changes and having to adapt. And it's the start of the season.
And the rookies being in, the rookies have been okay. They've been good. Sertiv still playing well, but they're not gonna. These rookies are not world beaters yet.
Yeah, they're not superstars. Yeah,
they're not. So Mackey might give you 20, 30 goals, but that might be a year or 2 from now. And Sertiv is always going to be that middle 6 guy. Maurice did say that Sertiv. Anyway, we'll talk about them later. But he said that Sertiv is not a 4th line guy, so that's a good sign. It seems like they think that his skill set is better for like a 2nd or 3rd line long term.
Who's a 4th line guy? Nick Cousins.
Yeah, I know, man. I think but they don't have anyone else. I mean, what are you going to do? You can put Lomberg up there, but
No, I think Maurice is keeping that 4th line as is for a reason.
It looked great yesterday,
Well, they're talented. They can.
I didn't like them together. I told you 2 games ago. I was like, I don't like them. And Lawrence didn't play a lot yesterday. Lawrence minutes are going down, so maybe there's something that they're not liking on defense.
I think it's just the PK. I know Stenlund from the PK. So he
And
has
Lumber
like
too. Yeah, you're right.
he almost doubles
Right.
his minutes,
You're right.
Stenlund.
You're right.
That's because of the PK. I think on offense, like when they're on 5-on-5, they all have the same ice time basically,
Yeah.
which is like 5 to 8
And
minutes.
Lawrence looks good. He can skate. He's fast.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think Stenlund is just he's big and he clearly can shoot. Plus Zito
He's
drafted him.
defensively. He's the best face-off guy we have too.
Yeah, 58%. All of our centers actually are over 50%.
Yesterday we dominated which is surprising against the Leafs because they have Matthews, Tavares, and Kemp.
Yeah, Tavares is really good.
Kemp is also really good. So that was a great showing. We were abysmal against the Jets. We were terrible in the faceoff circle. So another sign that we're improving. And for the Leafs, I would just quickly say, I feel bad for Domi. I don't think he fits that team. I mean, maybe that changes and he starts to get hot. But I think, their teams he's been allowed to play in ways that put up more points. But people forget that he was a third liner for Dallas. He was playing with like Marchman and some of these other players. He had a little bit of talent around him, and they were kind of free flowing on offense. He's never been good on defense, and Keefe does care about the defensive side. So that is pretty tough for Domi. And I think Bertuzzi was sick yesterday, so I also want to say that because his minutes went down, but hopefully that's just because he was sick, and Keefe say he might take a game off.
I think so. Because he typically, at least he participates,
He's lively.
Yeah.
He looked out of it yesterday. He was definitely not himself.
On that OEL goal, he was just so far back. Gave him all the space.
But Nice was moved up and then moved down and only played 11 minutes.
Okay.
Like Keefe is all over the place with this team. I'm with you. I think Treliving, it's going to fire him if things don't get better, because he will have to cover his own ass, because now you start to question the signings and you start to question why spend so much money on Klingberg. Was that really what they needed? Could they have used two defenders like Kolikov or Mikola, like those types of guys that could have maybe been more defensively sound but still give you enough offense to get it going to help Riley? That would have been cheaper and probably deeper for them and more solid long term, at least to keep them afloat and maybe trade some people at the deadline. But they don't have cap because they spent the $4 million there. They also spent 1.3 on Reeves, which is, like you said, to fight a couple of times in the beginning and then put music in the locker room. That just lets you know that Treliving thinks their locker room is terrible, but he doesn't. I don't understand. Why not spend that money on a center, a third line center, Nick Cousins type, or like one of those Lockwood, even like a guy who can give you minutes that are solid, you can trust both ways, that can play center. They don't have that at all. They have a bunch of AHLers now that haven't really been proven, like Pontus Holmberg or whatever. So anyway, like it's a mess right now with the cap, having to trade Lafferty. They don't have space, man. They can't really even make a trade because the only way to do it is to trade Brody or John Kruk, who only makes like 2 point something, and he's a two-way player. So if you lose him, what are you going to get back? And
no,
Brody's been elite on defense so far. So,
they have is Brody and McCabe are their best.
Well, McCabe has been terrible, but yesterday he was a lot better.
He was really good yesterday. He was their best defender, but I think their biggest issue is that Dubas, effed them up, because that was unexpected. I don't think Shanahan was expecting for Dubas to pull that, and he had to scramble. So I'll be fair in that sense. I get it. They had to get a GM right away. Treliving made sense because he was in Calgary. He went through a lot. He has experience, etc. But I think that if you're Shanahan, you have to then realize, hey, this might be a bit of a transition year, as it was for the Panthers last year with Maurice coming in. The cap wasn't allowing them to do much. Injuries, night deal, going, to the players' assistance program. I think that they're not self-aware. Like, you have to realize that it's going to look different. It's going to feel weird, and work on your weaknesses. What did Zito do? Oh, we had no depth. Now we have depth. You just got to work with what you got and try to strengthen your weaknesses, because like Matthews is going to be fine. Marner is going to be fine. Nylander, Tavares is going to be fine. Those guys are going to be fine. They're going to get their goals, their stats. But you're not going to be able to just win games. You can't score 6-7 goals a game to win every single night. So I think that they're just not aware, or they're not self-aware,
I just think it's bad management between Treliving and Keith, I hear you on the pressure and like him coming in. I also wonder about Shanahan and how much influence he has, because the fact that they're going to sign Nylander is sounding like they're pushing for that contract and they're trying to make it happen. So they're sticking with the plan. They're sticking with the top four, at least for the next couple of years. And then the Tavares thing, we'll see what happens. But getting Bertuzzi, to me, Bertuzzi and Domi were named signings. I think nobody liked the Reeves signing. It was a huge criticism that first day with Klingberg and Reeves because, Klingberg is known as a terrible defender and hasn't been great the last 2 seasons. Reeves is just a journeyman who doesn't provide much other than fighting or even fighting intimidation. But it's also really a liability, and they know that. And also the money, like 1.3 for him. They said that some other team was offering more. Let him go. Like, go to the Sharks, wherever the hell, whoever the hell was going to sign you. But so to bring Domi and Bertuzzi, they're terrible defenders. You know that. You have to. And then Klingberg also, and then Reeves also. So Treliving knows that he just made the team a lot worse defensively. And the issue with the team is not the scoring. You got a top four. John Croak gave you 20 goals last season. No reason for him not to do that again if you play him on the top line. Nice. You were supposed to invest in him. Give him minutes. Let him grow. He's going to make mistakes. Let him play. They were committed to him in a way that we're not yet committed to Mackey for the main team. And then build the bottom six, man. Spend, instead of going after Bertuzzi or Domi, maybe you could have spread out that money for depth and brought some two-way guys. And they're like, oh, we've done that before and it hasn't worked. You were a lot better defensively when you had Kerfoot and Lafferty and, all those guys back there and Achari and all that. So at least you beat Tampa. You competed, You were better than the Panthers, you just couldn't beat us. But
they have 4 really good offensive players. You don't really need that much more than that. You can either spread that out or put those on your top 2 lines.
You need bottom 6 contribution.
Build a solid third line, and then that's it. Your fourth can be, Reeves and whoever you want. I think I keep calling Klingberg Klingsberg.
No, Klingberg is Klingberg. Yeah, no. But anyway, I think Treliving did a poor job.
I'd be more talented if his name was Klingsberg.
Maybe. I think Treliving did a poor job in hindsight in roster construction. Again, under pressure and all that. But I think the pressure was there to get names. I think the pressure is there to get people excited. And at the end of the day, that's not the way you build. I don't see a process. I don't see a vision. I don't see an identity. And also their top guys are not leading the way that other teams' top guys do. And that you're never going to fix that unless those guys change, unless they're the ones playing the music, unless they're the ones leading the way. Or at least some of your core guys doing that, like Montour provides that for us, right?
Yeah, Tkachuk. Well, Tkachuk did for us last year.
Barkov in his own way. People say Barkov is hilarious in the locker room. He's very, actually very outspoken, even though he's kind of shy in public. But, and also Maurice, man. Like Maurice and the staff, they've created a culture of accountability. Like, we're going to play hard. There was no option. Like, we're going to either do this or we're going to blow it up. And so anyway, I think the Leafs are in a tough spot, and it's fascinating because of all the talk and stuff and how much they talk about themselves and how everybody thought that this year they were going to win the division, and they might still do that, but it won't be easy.
No, I found that weird.
It ain't going to get better. The defense is terrible, and it's going to stay terrible. Like, just no way to fix it.
But I wanted to wait and see how they were going to look, because they're going to win a lot of games on offense alone.
Yeah.
But they're going to be leaky. There's no way. There's nothing you can do. What trades are you going to make right now? There's nothing you can do right now to strengthen your blue line defensively. And I thought they did a good job last night. I think Keith did, maybe push them back a little bit to be more balanced, as opposed to just open the game up right away from the first period like they did in the playoffs, where they would just go really hard that first period, and then that's it. That was the game for them. After that, if they were trailing, it was done. But I think they did a good job last night. And then maybe if you play that, if you have that mentality and you play that way every night, and you get beat because, Klingsberg, whatever, messes you up, that's just a mistake from a player. But I think, I think that's going to crumble. You're what are you going to do? Fire Treliving now? You can't. And I think Keith is unfortunately going to be the one to go. He'll get hired somewhere.
Yeah, and the competition is tougher, man. The East and the Atlantic are going to be, like, Red Wings look really good. I told you they're going to be better than people think. Their offense is solid. They have some good named defensemen back there. Senators are starting to get hot. Buffalo's the one that's really been struggling, but I still expect him to wake up at some point and start scoring. So it ain't going to be easy. And Tampa and Florida are going to scratch and fight.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. Before we get to the NHL and other teams in the league, let's transition. Let's go into some of the comments by Paul Maurice, especially on the prospects and just in general. I think that coming down here has been really good for his reputation. He's clearly a smart guy, even though he had this reputation for being like a loser and a dum-dum and, says things just to say things and all this stuff. But I think clearly it's not just what he says. Obviously, he's very articulate. He knows how to get his point across. But beyond that, like you see it with the team and how serious they take him. And his coaches, too, his assistants are really good. The power play, which we didn't really even talk about, has been much improved, even though we're not scoring. But that's an individual thing. Missing the net and stuff. Barkov had a give me, and he rushed it and hit the side of the net by like a foot. Like he missed it by like a foot. Like all those things matter, right? So like you execute those things, and now the power play is like top 5 in the league or whatever. So I really like the power play. I think they worked on their weaknesses in the off season, and it's not like they had a lot of time to work on anything because you get to the finals, you gotta keep going. So let's get into the Paul Maurice comments and the prospects and just give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, he always encourage people, like if you're a Castro fan, just check out the interviews in between games. That's when Maurice gives you the good stuff. You can find that stuff on Florida Hockey Now online. But he talked about the plan for Mackey and Sordev from the start. Like the plan was to send them both down at some point. I think Sordev eventually is going to go down. He does not want them as the 13th person. They need to play. And we have a deep enough team where we don't need them right now because the main thing is they need some time to grow. Sordev is closer to the two-way play and being reliable. So that's why he's still playing, and he might stick around for a little bit longer if he keeps his job over Lockwood or whatever. But Mackey, I think, he struggled the second game, and I think defensively, especially, and turn it over and stuff. And I think they just want him to work on his two-way game. They want him to get used to the speed and the physicality. He got hit pretty bad on that Jets game, and he didn't seem to see it coming a couple of times. So he needs to work on his awareness, his two-way play, not forcing the play when it's not there. And Maurice mentioned how the AHL with Kinnear as the coach, they have a very similar system, and they do work on developing the young guys. They give him a lot of ice, so he's going to play top minutes down there. And Sordev eventually will probably do the same. And he also said that they will both get called up. So once there are injuries, they're going to be priorities. They got to earn it, So he said that Maggie's got to play well. But and the reason they brought Lockwood up is that not only that they've liked him since camp, because the way he described it with Lockwood was like, I didn't really know him. 5 days in, I'm like, hey, who's that kid? And then 10 days in, I'm like, I really like that kid. And then all of a sudden, he's in the conversation for a spot. But they felt like the rookies that earned it. And so they gave him the debut and they let them be part of the team. That's going to help the development. And it's like a carrot, it's like, here you go. This is what you could have if you get better, if you work hard, if you work at your craft. And then Lockwood had a hot start. He put up 3 points, 2 goals the first 2 games of the AHL. So I think he deserves to be the backup for now. So anyway, I like that they have a plan. This is what I mean about these things. With Minton and at the Leafs, they put him in the third line. They threw him to the Wolves, 19 years old, not a great line. He's looked worse and worse every game. He's not playing any minutes. He's going to be sent down. That's actually not good for his confidence, right? So this is why you need to have a plan. This year we have depth. We don't need these young kids. Maybe next year we'll need them once the contracts start to happen and we got to re-sign people and increase salaries. We're going to need those guys to play minutes. And so why not get them some experience now when he fits, when we need them, and then let them play in the NHL and grow and get bigger and physical. Because we saw what that did for Sordev last year. I mean, Sordev looks more ready because he played in the AHL for a season. So to me, that's what I took away. It's like they actually have a plan. He also said that Cito was the one who told him that Lockwood was looking good, and that's why they called him up. So it's not like Maurice just gets to call the shots. He does rely on everybody else around him to let him know who deserves a shot to play. So I like that system, man. There's no favorites. It's just who's playing hard.
Yeah, as it should be, right?
Yeah, but not everybody. I mean, not everybody does that. Like Marner could have a terrible game, and it's going to get those 25 minutes no matter what, right? And there might be times where you're like, the fourth line's going, you play those guys, like you shift them. And yesterday we were rolling lines, even though we were ahead and we needed to protect the lead. We were rolling lines because Maurice saw this fourth line is giving me what I need. So anyway, that I just listening to him and break down the plans and how they actually think about all this stuff, how they evaluated Velinskis and why they like Velinskis and what they've noticed in him, how he's building. You saw it yesterday, how physical he looked, which is surprising. They see the things before you see them, right, in practice. And so I don't know. I've always had faith in Maurice. He's not just a talker. Like, he's a very smart, articulate man, and that can annoy people. But him and his staff and Cito, like, they know what they're doing, man. And I don't know. I like that we have that. I know we said it before, but once the cap situation gets better with Bob and everything else, I think we can build a more balanced team, and then we could be a top team. So anyway, that's what I have for Maggie Sertif and Maurice, and just encourage people to go check them out. Listen, you'll learn a lot. You'll be less confused about why is Maggie not on the team. Why
and I think if the Panthers weren't like contending, then you will probably have 2, 3, or maybe even more of those guys playing in the third and fourth line. But I think just the fact that you're trying to get into the playoffs and make a run the next few years, you're naturally going to give that to the experienced players. It does matter. Experience matters a lot in the NHL, especially in the playoffs. So you can't just, throw Mackey out there and like, yeah, here come the playoffs. We have Mackey, and like he gets shut down, So yeah, I think it's tricky navigating that, and we'll probably see them in the next couple of years come up and fill in for those spots where we might not be able to spend big money. I wanted to mention something now. I did want to talk about this in general, about the Panthers. I think like our first line really needs like a star besides, next to Barkov. I think it's obvious now, so many years with the same. And it's not that it's bad. It's just that, Verhaeghe has been the best winger he's had. And he did play with Huberdeau back in the day. A few years ago, I understand that. And when it was like Barkov, Huberdeau, and Jagger, that was a fun line. And we made the playoffs. I think 2015, we won the division, I think. But I think that's lacking. That's really lacking. Even with Reinhardt there, again, like, he's not a 5-on-5 top scorer. He's not a top line guy, 5-on-5. And neither is Rodriguez, neither is Verhaeghe in a way. So I do think that if it's not with Mackey, maybe, the Panthers do need to sign a top name at the Brinkat. Look how well the Brink is playing with Detroit right now. Someone like that can come in and give you that top line. Look at the Avalanche. I wanted to talk about them. They're on a roll, man. They're playing so well. They're so fast.
Rantanen, they're making a comeback. They're healthier now.
Yeah, Rantanen and McKinnon are playing extremely well. Like, it matters. Your top line matters, and it should have, that should be your main line. You have Marner and Matthews with the Leafs. Like, you need a duo there, and Barkov has never really had that other than Huberdeau, and back then the team wasn't solid enough. So I think that's something that they definitely should look at for the next couple seasons. If you really want to make a run, you need to have that first line be your actual best line, and then not have like your second line be your top line. It's kind of a weird structure.
Yeah, and this is where the decisions will come, because I don't think long-term Verhaeghe is a first liner. To be honest, he's going to be in late 20s. If he wants like first line money, we might have to let him go. I don't know that he's going to score 40 every season. I think the guys who can do that start to do it early. I think he can be really good. I think Verhaeghe is great for the second line. I think that Bennett, Kachuk, Verhaeghe line, if that's our second line, I can do that. I agree. I think Barkov needs two wingers who are legit scorers. I do think Mackey has potential to become a first line winger on the right. We would need to sign somebody on the left, like a top guy, like you said, at the Brinket, or whatever, a guy who can reliably give you at 5-on-5, 25 to 30 goals.
Yeah, Tarasenko would have been a good pickup too.
Yeah, Tarasenko could have played that role. Again, you need the two-way play, so you got to always balance it out. But But Barkov gives you that. So I do think he needs better wingers. I think Rodriguez belongs on the third line with Lusty and Lundell. Like that would be a hell of a third line. I mean, again, if Bob wasn't getting paid $10 million, we would have maybe signed Tarasenko or signed somebody for $5 or $6 million, and you're spending, $4 on each goalie or whatever, and that's more balanced. The same with the defense. We could probably have better defense if we have more money to throw around. But again, we've made the most out of what we had. Once we actually have more disposable income in the next year or two, then it's just a matter of making judicious decisions with the contracts that we give to the people we have. And we're just going to have to let go of some people and use that money to get a free agent that maybe is an improvement, more consistent and more elite scoring, because you do need that for the playoffs. I mean, you could still make a run with a deep team and maybe be scrappy and win a cup. We almost did it, but more often than not, you do need that top two lines to be legit every night in and that out. Give you goals.
Yeah, we made that run last year like the hardest way. Like
Cousins was on the second line, bro.
And every game
was out. Duclair was like, So
every game was like a 1-goal game, and it was all forecheck and physicality and all that stuff. There wasn't a lot of skill, and it just caught up to.
We need to be more of the dominant team early on in the playoffs to be healthier, to deeper in. It can be so much of a grind every day. I mean, there'll be a grind, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we need to be able to put away games and not have our guys just like kill themselves to win a game.
Yeah, I think adding talent, that top line, and then a top defenseman that can score, the Aline or whatever that can, even if it costs you the $8-9 million a year, that's fine with me as long as they're young and they can score. Because we've been kind of just filling in that, like Ekblad was kind of that guy, but not really.
He's not anymore.
Last year, Montour gave us that, but we can't, that's just 1 year. We don't know what Montour's going to be like in the future. OEL's 32. So do you really want to, give him like a 4?
We would only keep him if he takes a cheap contract.
He would have to be a short
like
term.
$4 to $5 million at most. Yeah. We'll see what happens. But I think for now, we'll definitely have to improve that. And I do think there were rumors Cito was going after Tarasenko. Cito was going after Bertuzzi. Like, he was trying to get some scoring. We just didn't have the money for it. But, I do know that he needs that. He wants that. So Rodriguez was like the best sort of backup, to get an insurance, and him and Lusty for the next 3 seasons at that price, and Mikola and stuff. Like, I'm good with that. But I think Cito knows those guys for that price are role players. So
no. Yeah, exactly. Those are depth guys, and just fill out the lineup. All right, let's get into some NHL takes. The Avalanche. I want to talk about the West a little bit. The Avalanche and the Knights are looking really, really good, really consistent. They're just playing really consistent. They're almost with the Knights. It's tricky because there's skill there, but it doesn't. When you watch their game, nothing really jumps out at you. It's not like they're super fast or like flashy like the Leafs or even the Avs, but they're just so consistent, man. Every period, they just play really hard. They defend well. They have big guys. They have really good forwards, obviously. So they've been impressive. And they'll probably fall off a little bit. And then the Avalanche as well. The Avalanche, I think they have that style. I love their style of play. Very fast, very, end-to-end type of thing. And like from the West, I think those two teams are going to be up there. I know you want to talk about the Oilers, so I'll leave that up to you, and then we'll get into the East. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I think those two teams are going to be the teams to beat for now because of how deep and solid and experienced they are. They're both Cup winners. They haven't lost a lot. So, you can expect them to be strong. They're, especially the Avalanche after losing last year and being injured, they probably want to make another run. Their team's still young and the talent is top notch. So, there's still questions on goalie. On the goalie, there's still questions on vulnerability on defense, but that because they have a lot of defensemen who can really move the puck. But I don't know about the once they play top teams. And Vegas is just a question of health, I think, for them. Just as it's a bit of an older team, and just can they stay healthy and compete? The Oilers have looked terrible. I mean, yesterday, man, with the Philly, they got outshot. They lost, was it 4-1 or whatever it was? McDavid has zero shots yesterday, which I do not comprehend. I don't know what's happening there. I don't know if it's a coach thing. I don't know if they need to make a change there. Again, I've told you in the past, I think that coach is overrated because I don't. And the GM, they haven't built the right team. They have no defense. They're terrible on 5-on-5. The goalie situation is poor. Similar to the Leafs, they're like the Leafs of the West, and they might get hot and compete and make a run again, but I still don't see them getting past even Dallas. Like I think Dallas is more well-rounded and better coached, and is still young, but they've already also been to the finals, a few of those guys. So I think that those are the three teams for me. The ones you mentioned in Dallas is like the top, and then the rest is just whatever. We'll see what happens with the Kings. They're starting to get hot. The Jets lost, and all that. So we'll see what happens there, man. But I wanted to talk about a couple of surprising things. One is, the Leafs we talked about a lot, so I'm not gonna harp on that. Just be curious watching what's happening there. The Lightning, as I told you, they're scrapping. They had to beat the Canucks for 3. Johansson's save percentage for the season is .897. And this is who they are. This is full strength. I know Stamkos missed the game, but this is, I suppose, it's different from the Panthers. Like the Panthers will get stronger when they get their top guys back. I think that this is going to be what the Lightning look like for the whole season. So they're going to have to stay healthy, and then Vasilevsky needs to come back and give them something. But I think they're going to struggle, and they're going to be that. There could be around 3 to 4 games over 500 type thing, and that might not be enough. So they might need to go on a run, and Vasilevsky needs to get hot. So we'll see what happens with them. But so far, they've looked the way that I thought they would, which is they're going to have to fight for their wins no matter who they play. And then Carolina, man, have you seen? Carolina's allowed the most goals in the league, which is mind-blowing. Orlov in 5 games is -10.
Yeah, Orlov has been bad.
D'Angelo's -4, Bunting's -2, and there's a few other minus guys, but all the new guys they brought in, I think, have made the defense a lot worse, and I think that's part of it. And D'Angelo's freelancer and kind of a wild card, and I don't like him. He gets into scraps that he has no reason to start. Orlov is not fitting in right now. It's been awful. And Bunting it's solid, but he's also a wild card and kind of a wild player. I know Aho has been out the last couple of games, but they've allowed so many goals. They've lost to bad teams. I'm surprised by that. I'm less surprised by the Rangers struggling, but because I told you I thought they were going to miss the playoffs. But yeah, to me, the Carolina part has been the most surprising. It's, what the hell's happening there. I still expect them to right the ship because they're well coached and they're deep, and their young guys are going to get better, but not what I expected from them. And if this is going to be who they are for the season, then that opens up the East a lot more, because I had them in the finals. So it might be wide open at this point if they don't get it right. Because even Jersey, to me, with the Panthers, I have to say their skill level insane. As a solid team for the playoffs, I don't think they got it.
Yeah,
I think they're incredibly vulnerable, and I think they're going to get eliminated by Carolina, or could be Panthers, could be Lightning. I don't think the Devils get through one of those very solid playoff teams.
No, they're still young and fast and all that, but they're not balanced. And yeah, I was surprised with the Hurricanes. I'm surprised that they haven't been as good on defense. They'll probably get worked out. Brenda Moore is a very, very good coach, so I do think they'll straighten out and they'll be fine. The Bruins have been playing really well. They've played lesser competition, but they've been taking care of business as they should. We play them soon, so we'll see. And then I think the Sabres kind of stink it. They're doing the same thing they do every year. Now it's when okay, you signed Aline, you have Thompson, you have your guys, your core. Now it's when you start bringing in players to add depth, experience, defense, whatever it is that you need. I don't know why, how many years in a row people are so high on them and want them to succeed so bad.
Because scoring hides a lot. We see it with the Leafs, with the Oilers. the truth is the Sabres are one of the worst defensive teams that were last year. Like from a goalie perspective, from a defense perspective, they're incredibly leaky and disorganized, and they haven't worked on that for whatever reason. It doesn't look like it. If they have, it's not working. And the pressure's on. They're not going to surprise anybody anymore. And they're not going to have as much cap because they're giving away all the money. So their top guys got to step up. I'm more high on Detroit and the Senators because Detroit is sneaky balanced. They signed not just the Brinket. They brought in Sprong. They brought in a few other forwards. They have Sherratt there on the third pairing, which is where he belongs. They have Gostisbehere. They have Justin Hall. They added depth to the back line. Do they have world beaters back there? No, but they have Seider. Like, they're a really good team. As long as Huzo and some of those goalies can give them like solid play, they're going to be hard to beat. And then Senators are incredibly physical, and they have a lot of great defensemen who are young but are going to get better. And so the Senators are harder to beat to me because they have a great power play and they can play physical. And those two things in the playoffs translate. And so I think that those guys have a better shot of making a run at some point than Buffalo, which is all flash in the top two lines and then really not much else. And Deline, it's a great offensive defenseman and can defend, but that's not his priority. And so to me, again, just not a balanced team. You can beat them 5-3, 6-4. And that also for the playoffs doesn't bode well. The last thing I'll say about the Bruins, you mentioned the schedule. Like, the Bruins are going to fool a lot of people early on because that schedule is the softest schedule in the entire league. It's ridiculous how easy it is. They're beating people by scoring very low scoring games, defending and goaltending, which is great, but hard to sustain for the whole season. They have not faced any real firepower yet.
Yeah, they haven't scored more than 3 goals in any of their games. Until I see that
Pasternak's been good, Van Riemsdyk. See, and I can't say it with my friggin' accent. James Van Riemsdyk. Klingsberg.
Who the fuck is that guy?
He's an older veteran that they got from the Philly, the Flyers, Philly, and he scored like 3 goals. That's not gonna hold, And so
James Van Riemsdyk.
There you
Riemsdyk.
Yeah, Riemsdyk. Isn't he? There's 2 of them, so I hope that's the right one. That's with the Bruins.
Yeah, the one with the Bruins is James Van Riemsdyk.
Yeah,
that's Klingsberg.
Yeah. So anyway, the Bruins are going to start hot. Is what I'm trying to say. They're going to have
they do have an easy
and they'll compete for a playoff spot. I always thought that they weren't going to drop as much as people thought that they would. I think that they're still going to compete. They have a great system, great culture, but I do think I'd be surprised if they're like a top 2 or 3 team in the East. I do think that they'll drop, but we'll see. Just putting it out there for folks. If you're only looking at the scoreboard, if you're looking at the record, the Bruins got a gimme of a schedule so far. Even the road trip, it's like super easy teams for them.
Yeah,
they play the Kings now, so we'll see how they look against the Kings. But
yeah, that's the only tough team. Then you get the Ducks, Blackhawks, the Ducks again, and then they do go on like a 5-game tough opponent: Red Wings, Panthers.
That's
Leafs,
when you have to see what happens.
And the Stars.
That's when I want to see who they are coming out of that trip. Yeah, but yeah, man, interesting start. It's wide open. A couple of Western teams have taken over. It's wide open in the East.
Yeah, it's too early to tell. But if we look at the body of work, the Panthers, I think, have been consistent, believe it or not. The Jersey and the Leafs game were pretty good. The Minnesota game was really, really good. I thought they played really well. The Leafs have been consistently what they are. If not for Matthews, those first 2 games, they're probably 0-4 easily. The Hurricanes are kind of a weird one. I'm going to wait to see that one. The Knights, I think that's expected. Dallas is expected. The Avs make sense. The Oilers, a little tricky, but yeah, they need to move on from what's the guy from Family Guy, the creator, Marv Garland. They need to move on from that guy. Yeah, McDavid is probably gonna want to go pretty soon. They have 2 of the best forwards in the league, top 5 for sure, and they can't make it work. Yeah, man, it's gonna be a fun season. Let's see how it goes. Panthers are only 2 points out of a playoff spot. We're right there, bro.
I didn't know that. I haven't even looked at the standings. I think this
I
early
always
in
wait 10 games. I do 10
yeah,
games.
and Marie said that the start of the season is really 20 games. Yeah, I guess you have the Bruins, Senators, Red Wings starting hot. The Lightning have an extra game for the Atlantic, I mean. So in some ways, like that's yeah, I guess we're
Yeah. And like you said, right
only
now, I think Ottawa and Detroit are the 2 wild cards, not in the sense of making the wild card. I mean, to see how they perform, they've been
I
playing
mean, we're
well.
tied. We're tied for 7th, technically. It's just that goal
Yeah,
differential.
yeah. No,
Goal
yeah. I mean,
differential.
I'm not. I was just messing around. That the standings are not gonna be. They're not gonna stay like that.
I mean, you could say we're 2 points away from first place. So yeah.
Yeah. Top in the East is
It's going
6
to be tight.
points.
It's going to be tight. So
Yeah.
the last thing I'll say was I think to me we're going to have 2 games happening for the next time we record. So we have the Canucks and the Sharks. So those should be on paper easier games. I want to see how we look against lesser competition. If we play hard at home, can we dominate? Can we score more? Can we get some of our guys who've struggled going? Or are we going to have a letdown like we did last season where we let some of these easy games slip away or get goalie by one of these random goalies, which we did get goalie a bunch of times last year by a bunch of like backups. So anyway, I don't want that to happen. But we have a lot of days off. So we'll have a game tomorrow, we'll have a game on Tuesday, and then we don't play again until Saturday, which sucks for us to, from a watching perspective, but a lot of practice time at home, which I like, and time for Bennett to get healthy. So
Yeah.
Bennett maybe only misses the next 2 games, and then a week from now.
He'll be back for the Bruins. I'm 99%.
But even
sure.
before then, he might, yeah. So
yeah, I think he'll be ready. It was like 2 weeks. It was suspected.
But the practice time at home, I like because I do think that they need to keep working on chemistry. So anyway, like it'll be exciting, and it'll be an interesting conversation next time playing lesser competition. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about the checkers and the AHL. Maybe if not much else is happening, because
we'll sneak that in.
Mackey is going to play there. It's going to be a few games. McAllister's down there.
Yeah.
And Mouse and Benning's been starting both games, so they're going to play like 3 games in the next week. So we can talk about them and about our prospects.
All right. Sounds good. All right, let's wrap it up there. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll come out with a few episodes during the season. We'll try to keep it to 1 per week. The schedule allows. And yeah, excited to see what happens now in this home stretch and where the Panthers go from here. All right, guys. We'll catch you all next time.
All right, man.